Alright guys, we're back again with another video, and in this video we're going to be talking about how to paint MDF.
Counting double-digit thousands.
Alright guys, so why use MDF? Well, MDF, if you take a look at it, is actually manufactured, and because it's manufactured, you actually get a very, very flat, smooth surface, and so that's really good for a lot of things like kitchen cabinets. Actually, a lot of cabinet makers actually use MDF. Speaker boxes use it for, obviously, because it's a very stable material, and the other reason is because it actually has acoustical benefits as well. So I use MDF a lot. The problem is a lot of people don't know how to paint MDF and they hate it. And let's be honest, MDF is not a great thing to work with. And here's the reason why. MDF actually needs to be sealed before you paint it. And before we kind of talk about some of the reasons why, let's just show you what it kind of looks like when you don't seal it first. This is just a piece of scrap. And this is just some spray paint. Now this is paint and primer in one. So anyone that says that I'm not using paint and primer, this is paint and primer. Let's just see what it does on MDF before we do anything to the MDF. You notice the paint's not actually really being accepted on the MDF, and there's a reason for that. MDF actually just kind of soaks it in. MDF does not do well with water, or anything really until you seal it, but definitely doesn't do well with water. In fact, water can make it swell. It can raise what we call the end grain, and you actually can't even really sand that out. And when water actually hits MDF, it has a chance to actually warp it and expand it. So we don't want this. So what we need to do is actually seal MDF. Now, since we know that water's not good, we obviously don't want to use water-based material on MDF. So we're not going to be using water-based paint. So you might buy a paint and primer for one in your house and it's water-based. You don't want to use that. So let me show you some of the ways that I seal MDF to get my best painting results. Now you do want to paint this on whatever, you want to seal this on whatever side you're painting. So one of the ways in which you can seal it is a simple shellac. Shellac is not water-based, and so you can use shellac to be able to seal your MDF. And here comes my favorite. This is my favorite. This is Bin Primer. Now, Bin has a bunch of different primers. It's Zinsser Primer, Bin. They have a bunch of different ones, but if you look, this one says shellac base. I really like this stuff, and this is what I use the majority of the time on any of my projects. It really does do a great job as far as priming it, and then it does a great job as far as sealing it. So I like that, and you can tell it's sealed because it is a color versus, some of the other ones are clear. So those are some options. There are, of course, other ways in which you can seal MDF as well. But there's something else that we need to talk about besides just sealing it, and that's covering some of these edges. A lot of people will use these MDF and they'll have, now I actually flush mount or flush trim all mine, but you're still going to get some little bit of variation occasionally. And if we don't really fill this part in, then we're going to have issues later coming down the road. When we finish it, you'll actually see these joints. So we don't want to see those joints. So what do? That's where this comes in. This is Bondo glazing and spot putty. If you can tell, I've used this quite a bit. And I'm going to show you quickly how to put that on and what to do once it's on. So what you're going to want are some of these. These are just what you'd use for like a drywall or anything else. You can use whatever size you want. I just had these ones on hand. Ideally, what you'd have is one that can go across the whole thing at the same time. I'm using a little bit smaller one, but the premise is all the same. I'm going to take some of this glaze. You don't have to be shy with it. Use as much as you want. And just put it on. Now really you just need to get the spots, get all the joints, but ideally I like to just get the whole top. And I like to do that because then I can just sand it down, and I know I'm going to have a flat top. I don't have to worry about whether or not I need to do it. Now, obviously, the more you work on this now, the less sanding you have to do. I'm not too concerned about that because this stuff sands really easily. So there you go. That's one side done, and then just keep doing that to all your sides and all your joints. And then we'll just sand that out. And once we sand that out, we can paint that right on up. Now, I actually do this before I seal it.
So once we've given this some adequate time to dry, what we're going to do now is sand out the putty. Now we're going to go ahead and sand that out until we think that we have a very fine surface. If we feel like we have a fine surface already, we're just going to go ahead and prime it. If we don't, we're going to go ahead and use some more putty until we get the surface that we think we need. Now, once we prime it, there's one last step that I like to do. Now, you can grab any can of spray paint that you have around the house or any other type of paint that you have. And what you're going to want to do is spray it a real slight light dusting on it to see if you notice any imperfections. If you do, this is the time to go ahead and touch it up with a little bit more putty before you start putting your actual paint on. If you do this, you're going to be guaranteed a pristine coat at the end. Alright guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you guys want to connect with me outside of YouTube, please follow me on Instagram, Twitter, or my website. And of course, you always have the option of becoming one of my patrons. All right, guys, thanks.
Counting double-digit thousands.